This will be a quick demo of how to create a virtual reality multi-channel video installation. So what that means is a space in which multiple videos are played at the same time that can be viewed in VR. So if you're interested in showing someone what a video installation might look like, or creating sort of a virtual documentation of a video installation you've actually built, this can be very useful. To start, here we are in Blender, and we've got our default cube here, and we're actually going to use this to set things up. So the first thing I am going to do is I'm going to go on this, with this cube, I'm going to go into edit mode, and I will click A for select all. I'll turn on snapping, select the move tool or press G on the keyboard, and I'm going to just drag up on this gizmo here and just drag this cube so it's sitting on the plane. So now what we see here is our cube is on the plane, but its origin point is also on the plane, as opposed to if we had moved the cube in object mode, and you switch between object and edit mode with the tab key, you can see that the origin point moves with it. So this is what we want. The next thing I'm going to do for this specific demo, I'm going to use the imperial measurements. So here we're going to go to scene properties, one of these tabs here. Looks like a cone with a ball in front of it, and we'll choose units. We'll switch units to imperial, and we'll leave length and width in feet. So now I can hit the N key on the keyboard, or click on this tiny little tab up here, and I can see the dimensions and scale of the cube. So right now it's kind of like 6.5 feet all around. So I will in this case, I'm going to scale this with the keyboard. So I'll hit S for scale, and you can see it's growing from the bottom, which is good. But I want to just grow the cube, and I'm watching the dimensions here until it is, we're going to go with about 12 feet tall. And of course, you can also just go to this Z value, the dimensions, and type 12. So now our room is 12 by 12 feet. I want our room to be a little bigger than this. So I'm going to click S for resize again. But this time I want to resize it on just the X and Y axis. So to exclude the Z axis, I will press Shift Z. And now we're just growing this shape. And I'm just kind of shaping this room to what looks good. So there we go. And there are many ways to make a room, but we're gonna go with this way. So now that we've done that, we're going to pop the ceiling off this room just to make it a little easier to work. There's ways to hide it, but I find this way works well. So I'll hit Tab to go back into edit mode, face select, select the top face, just stay with select mode, and now I'm going to hit the letter P on the keyboard for separate and separate selection. And now I'll hit Tab again to leave edit mode. So now you can see we have cube and cube 1. So I'm going to call it room, and I'll rename cube 1 to top or ceiling or whatever. And this has a little eye next to it, so I'll hide that for now, and we can see right inside our room. So now we're going to go ahead and set up our screens in the room. And again, we're keeping this pretty simple. So Tab, we'll select the box and hit Tab to go into edit mode. And now I'm going to select one of the walls. I'm going to press I for inset. And that looks good for the screen. It doesn't matter that I'm looking from the outside. This is something to be viewed from the inside, so we're not even going to make the walls thick or have external dimensions. So there, that looks good for the screen size. Now I'm going to select each of these walls and press Shift R to repeat this action. So R for repeat. So I'll select this wall, Shift R, I'll select this wall, Shift R, and this one we're going to do something else. So on this wall, I will hit inset. And we're just going to leave that smaller one there for now, because that's going to be something else. So now I want these screens to stick out from the wall a little bit. So I'll select 1, 2, 3, and now I'm going to press Option E or Alt E on Windows, and I'm going to do Extrude Individual Faces. And you can see now these all come in at the same time. And again, we're just kind of eyeballing this now, but if you want specific dimensions, then you should do that. So we've got our 3 screens in the space, and now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move this one around here. So what I'm going to do with this shape, I'm going to stay in Face Select, I'm going to select it, I'm going to press S. Now I see that green line going across the screen, which represents the Y-axis, so I'll hit Y, and I'll shrink this guy down. Then I'm going to hit S and Z, make it a little shorter. You might be able to guess what this is going to be. And now I'm going to hit G, and this kind of totally warps our shape. I want to move it around, but only up and down and on the Y-axis. So I'm going to hit Shift X to exclude that X-axis. And now I'm just going to move this shape around. You can see it's kind of jumping around. It's kind of jerking around. So I'm going to hit Escape and turn off snapping up here. And now move it again, G, Shift X. And I'm just going to move it right here to be our door. So this is kind of weird topology. They are quads, but these are kind of weird shapes here. But for what we're building, it's not gonna matter that much. We're just kind of creating a quick sort of effect here. So now I'll hit E to extrude this out, and I'm going to extrude this way out. And you can see when we look inside, it's kind of like a little hallway in there. We just want like a little implication of a door. This is a really, really basic model. Basic is the name of the game here. So this is it. Our whole room is complete. We could add fancy baseboard and stuff. We would probably want to put a loop cut first if we're going to do that, but forget about that. We don't need that. So now we'll hit Tab to leave this space, and we are going to make sure we have some add-ons enabled. So I'll go to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, and here I'm going to search for Import. And here's this one called Import Images as Planes, and it's on, and that is great. Another one we might use later, I'm going to type VX or Material, and you can see these material library, material utilities. You can check material library on too, because that'll give you some default things like wood floors and stuff if you want to use that just while you're starting out before you start creating your own materials and whatnot. So now that we have all that set up, we will go to File, Import, and we're going to go to this option, Import Images as Planes. And from here, we'll navigate to our videos. Now, I only have 3 clips. I've just got these 3 random nature clips here. If you have more than 3 clips, or if you just have any number that's hard to keep track of, I would recommend numbering them before you start. So call them video 01, 02, 03, etc. So I'll select all of these and click Import Images as Planes. So it's dropped these videos in these 3 places, and I could try to align these, but I'm not even going to worry about that. I'm just going to hit X and delete. So I should mention that these screens are a little wider than the videos, but in this case I'm just going for that more cinematic perspective, so I'm going to let them get cropped. But that's just a side note. So why did I import these videos as planes and then delete them? You will see in just a moment. So now I will select this box and I will go to the Material tab in this column here, usually the second one to the bottom. It looks kind of like a black and red checker sphere. And I'll just hit New Material, and I'm just going to call it Walls. And then I'm going to create some more materials here. So I'll create another new material, and I am going to rather than naming it, I'm going to select this drop-down menu, and here are our videos. And that's why we imported them as planes, because by doing that, it automatically turned the videos into materials. So I'll select bluegill, then I'll add another here, I'll select mantis, I'll add another here, I'll select turtle. So there we go, we've got 3 video materials. And when we go into material mode, right along the top here, you've got this mode where you can see the material preview as opposed to this, which is our render preview. So here in material preview, you can see it's just a white box inside. And that's because we haven't actually assigned these videos to any faces yet. So I'm going to hit tab, and here we're just going to check something. I'm going to select these viewport overlays here, and I'm going to look around here. In the geometry section, there's this option, face orientation. So I click this and I can see that blue is on the outside and red is on the inside. So our space is inside out, which means when we show our videos, they're going to be backwards. So I'm going to hit A for select all. We're still in face mode. And I'm going to hit spacebar or F3, depending on which your search setting is. I'm going to type flip. And here, the first thing that comes up, flip normal. So I'll click that. And now you can see the inside is blue and the outside is red. And I'll go to these overlays here and turn off face orientation. So now we've got our shape and our faces are oriented properly. So I will select the first face and I will put the bluegill video there. I'll hit assign. And then I will select this one here, mantis, this one here, turtle. So you can see, we can sort of see these videos here, but they're totally weird and stretched out. So I'm going to just click this rectangle here, and I will click, or face I should say, and I'll click U for the UV mapping, and I'm going to click unwrap. And now our video looks okay. Do the same thing here, U, unwrap. So we're going to have to go into the UV editor to really tweak each of these, but it won't be too much trouble. So I'll click on this face here to start, and I'll go up here, UV editing. And here we can see that the face does not cover the whole video. So here I'll hit A. So to adjust the size of this, I'm going to click on one side and hit G, and then I can kind of drag that face just moving the mouse. I can also hit the move tool and use this little gizmo. Now I can't really see what I've done here because it's not in material preview, so I'll click that on again. And now I can see that looks pretty good, but it's a little stretched. So to accommodate the crop, I'm going to drag this up a little bit. Just kind of match it to the rectangle there. And we could measure these and go back and forth, but we're just doing this quick right now. And now I'll select all of these, hit A, and use this gizmo to drag this rectangle down a little bit. And this will just set my crop. So I'll go around and do the same thing again. So I'll select this face. Looks okay. So I'll go back to layout. Now we can see our 3 videos in the room. And I'll backtrack. And I will hit play on the timeline. And we can see our little nature theater it's all playing. That's great. So now we got a few little things to add. We got to set up our camera. We got to set up our lights. I think to just give this space a little bit, just to make the space look a little better, I am going to select this bottom face, and we enabled that material library earlier, so I'll hit that. I'll scroll down in the material tab to material library and select sample materials. And then the sample materials, I think there's one that's like called walnut or something that looks pretty good. I'll just go with this one, wood, and choose this option, apply to selected. Now we have a wood floor in our space. Is it the best wood floor? No, but we're just having some fun with this. And also the light is going to be pretty low in this situation, so it's not gonna be that noticeable. If we wanted to add like a cute baseboard or something, we could. This is keyword optional here. I could bring in inset the floor. Select these new little faces here. Hit E to extrude and bring those up just a tiny bit, give the floor like a little edge. Why not? It looks a little weird with the door, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. We just kind of want to make a simple space for getting the videos in. So if I go to render mode, we can barely see these videos at all. And I can switch from Eevee to the better rendering engine or the ray tracing rendering engine cycles. And you can see we just see a little bit of gray. And that's because our scene world is gray as opposed to black. So it's just kind of like a slightly dim light going everywhere. To make these videos visible, we're actually going to have to edit the material in shading. So I will click on this face, and I'm still in edit mode, so I can click the individual faces. But I can also just select the materials in the material tab for the purpose of shading. In fact, maybe I'll do that so we can see what we're doing better. So I'll go up here to the shading tab, and I'll zoom out a little bit so I can see everything here. And now I've got material output, this thing called Principled BSDF, which we won't even go into right now, and we have bluegill here. So we are going to on Principled BSDF, and we're going to press X, which is delete. Now I'm going to hit Shift A, search, and type emission. So now we take the emission and we attach it to the surface. You can see if we go into render mode, we now have a bright white glowing screen, which is white, but we're going to change the color to our picture. So now our image is glowing. And if we want to make it brighter, we can crank up the strength or crank down the strength if we want to make it dimmer. I'm going to leave it at 1.8 for no reason except that's the number that came to my mind. So now I'll click on this material tab and I'll select Mantis, and I'm going to do the same thing. This is looking pretty good. Now if we want to change the color of the walls, I can select the walls texture, and this is the Principled BDSF here. We're not going to mess around with it too much, but here you can change the base color so we can have some nice dark walls in there to make the films more dramatic. And you know, if you want, you can make the walls shiny. You can kind of see some reflections of the film on them. I think it's a little distracting, so we'll just keep the walls rough. You can make them metallic, all sorts of cool stuff, but we don't need to worry about that. So the last thing I'm going to do here is I kind of want to have a sense that this is a little doorway or an exit or something here. So I'm going to go back into edit mode. I'm going to select that face so you can see it back there, and I'm going to give it a new material. I'm going to hit plus here. I'm going to create a new material. I'm going to call it glow. I'm going to select assign. So, whoops, didn't assign. Try it again. Assign. So here in the material view, you can see the walls look lighter just because there's light everywhere. So now that back wall is light, but it's not really going to make any light because it's just a white wall. So here in this thing, Principled BDSF, we can actually set an emission within here. So I'm going to turn it up and choose like orangey color. And now I'll switch back to render view, and we can see there's just like a little bit of light back there. And you know, we're not going to go in that corridor or anything, but it just gives us the implication that there's a little bit of space there. So we could add more lights to our scene. So, whoops, let me hide the top. So here, where's my light? Oh, here I have my light outside the space, so I can move that in. You can see we can move light all around the space. For my purposes, I don't think that these lights or cameras are going to suit us, so I'm going to just select all the lights and cameras and hit X and delete that stuff. So we'll just add these from scratch. So for the lights, I'm going to view this from the side. I'm going to switch to wireframe mode just to keep this simple. I'm going to hit Shift A and add a point light, so it's just like a glowing ball. And now I'm going to put this kind of in the four corners of the room. So I'll hit G and Z, move it up a little bit. And now looking straight from the top, I'll just move this around so it's kind of in the corner here. If you're looking down straight from the top, you can't move on the Z-axis unless you select it, which is useful. So we've got like a little glowing orb there. And now in render mode, I can see that there's a little light glowing there. I'm going to lift this up a little bit. And I'm actually going to make this even dimmer because these are just kind of like safety lights. Right now in the light tab, the power is set to 10 watts. I'm going to turn it down to 5. I'm going to change the color on it, make it a little warmer. So it's just like a little bit of light in the corner of the room. So now I'm just going to go to material mode or even object mode so I can just see clearly our things that are here. And we're going to move this light to all four corners of the room. And there's a few ways to do it, but this is the way we're going to do it. So you can see this light has, it's sort of like a circle, but then it has an orange dot. And you can see if I select this room, it has an orange dot in the middle. So that is the origin point. So having selected this light, I'm going to press Command A, and I'm going to apply all transformations. And then I'm going to right-click on the light, and I am going to so here, to move this light to all four corners of the room, we can eyeball it, which would probably work fine. So I could just hit Shift D, which is duplicate, and move it to the four corners of the room, which actually is probably fine. But another thing we could do is we can add an empty to our scene. So I'm adding an empty cube to our scene, and an empty just means that it doesn't render. It's sort of just like a theoretical cube. So I can select the light, then select the cube, and press Command P or Control P for parent object cube transform. And still keeping these selected together, I can hit Shift D and R for rotate, Z for Z axis, and I can precisely rotate this to the four corners of the room. So I'll rotate it 90 degrees, and now I'll hit Shift R for repeat, Shift R for repeat, and we've got our light in four different positions. So honestly, for this model, I don't know that the precise location of the lights is that important, so you could probably just click and drag them around. So now if we go into render mode, you can see we've got a little light in the corners of the room. We've got our screens, and we are almost done. The next thing we're going to need in this setting is a camera. So I'm going to hit Shift A again, choose camera, and it's kind of hard to see, but it's in there, so I'll hit G to move it. or actually I'll use the gizmos so you can see. So I'll click the move tool here and just drag the camera up a little bit. Now, I don't like that this camera is sort of angling down, so I'm going to reset the rotation. And there's a few ways to reset the rotation, but the one I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Option R or Alt R if you're using Windows. And now the rotation is just pointing straight down. So now to rotate this so it's just looking straight forward, and it doesn't actually matter which direction it's looking because this is going to be a VR camera, I'm just going to choose the x-axis here, and if you don't see this menu, you can click N to make that appear. And type in 90. And now we have the camera facing forward. So if we click on camera view right now, we're just staring at that part of the video. But what we're going to do here is in the camera menu, we're going to change the camera to panoramic. And then for panorama type, we're going to set it to equirectangular. So now we're ready to render a VR space. So now that we have set our camera as a VR camera, we are ready to render this out. So the first thing we will do is go to Output Settings, which are the tab below the little camera, and we are going to set our resolution so it has a ratio of 1 to 2. In this case, I'm going to leave my vertical resolution as 1080, and just here I'm going to write 1080 asterisk for the multiplication symbol 2, and now we have a 1 to 2 ratio for our rectangle. Now the next thing we have to do is we have to set our number of frames. So our videos are 15 seconds long. So right now it's set for 24 frames a second. I'm going to switch this to, well, I'll just leave it at 24. The videos are originally 30, but I'm not going to worry about it. So we need to have the frame number match that. So 15 seconds means 15 times 24, so 15 times 24, and now we've got 360 frames. And we can look at our timeline here and play it through. I'm just going to scrub through quickly. I think that looks right. All right, so here we can see our whole space outstretched. We've got our frames set. Our next step here is in the output dimensions. We want to, so we've got our resolution and we've got our number of frames, and we want to turn on stereoscopy. So this is 3D VR. Then here for file format, we need to choose where this is saving actually. So right now it's just going to a temp folder. So I'll click this little folder here, and I'm just going to put it in the same place that the original videos are, and we'll call it space. So now you can see it's going to be called space. We're going to, for the format here, we don't want a PNG, that's a still image. So we're going to set it to FFmpeg, which is a codec for compressing video. And here in the encoding, we're going to set the container to MP4. Video codec H.264, that's good. That's web standard still. So I'm going to leave this as 1080 for the vertical resolution, as I mentioned before, but generally for VR, you'll get a better result if you crank the resolution way up from here. I'm keeping it low so that the render time isn't too long. So now in the render section, unfortunately we can't use the GPU. If you can, that will speed things up exponentially. Something we can do to speed up the rendering is we can have fewer samples. Essentially, you can see that grainy effect when I rotate around. So higher samples means, when rendering, just means essentially higher quality. Lower samples means more noise. So because I'm just demoing this right now, I'm going to set it to 64, so half the resolution. So once all those things are selected, you simply go to the Render tab up here, the Render menu I mean, and select Render Animation, and it will start rendering. And you can see it takes a little time to draw each frame. The reason that this frame is starting out red is it's only rendering the left or the right channel, and it will then render the left.